We're live and now recording.
Thanks, Katie. Can we begin with roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Antonio?
Here.
Mr. Badger?
Here.
Mr. Bleefeld?
Here.
Ms. Kiabachi?
Here.
Mr. Frank?
Here.
Mrs. Heyman?
Here.
Ms. Karyanakis?
Here.
Dr. Morris?
Here.
Mrs. Ginsburg?
Here.
And Gavin Lewis Richmond.
Here.
9 present, 0 absent, and 1 student board rep this evening.
Thank you, Katie. Would everyone now please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I'd like to start by welcoming everyone to this December 12th meeting of the Wissahickon School Board. Looking at our agenda, you'll first see all of our prior meetings listed out. On December 5th, we had our reorganization and work session. On December 12th, earlier this evening, we had our audit committee meeting, followed by an Act 34 hearing. Next, you'll see our upcoming meetings. On December 19th, we have our Board Racial Equity Oversight Committee meeting. January 9th, we have our next regular public board meeting. January 17th will be another Board Racial Equity Oversight Committee meeting. January 23rd will be our Policy Committee meeting. January 30th, our work session, and February 6th, our regular public board meeting. We'll now do our WeOff presentations from our student board reps.
Hi everyone, I'm Alexandra from WeOff. Firstly, on November 30th, WeOff launched its Winter Staff Tribute Program, which closed last Wednesday at midnight. To honor the Wissahickon staff, we asked families to make a $15 donation and write a note of gratitude to staff members, including counselors, teachers, bus drivers, etc. WeOff board members finished the process of pairing these personalized notes with each staff member's personalized gift package, which includes goodies, a notepad, and a pen. And this is actually what one of the little goodie bags looks like. So we have the note in the back and then our 2 gifts from WeOff and then 2 little goodies. We have chocolates in this one.
Can you pass it around so we can see it?
Sure. Overall, we have raised about $5,515 and close to 300 notes and donations. This money will help fund learning grants and assembling grants in all schools across the district. These include first day motivational speaker assemblies, a visiting author or artist, and a performing arts speaker. WeOff funds one of each of these events at each school each year. The donations and contributions to this staff tribute program really do help our school district and students. So WeOff wants to say a special thank you to all the families who participated. We are sure that the staff members who were recognized will greatly appreciate your kindness.
I'm Gabe, and secondly, Trivia Night is in the works, and it will be held at the end of March 2023. We are working on finalizing the details regarding when and where, so please keep a watch for incoming emails from WeOff about this event. We are excited that it'll be back this year and better than ever. Thank you, and can we answer any questions?
Does anyone have any questions this evening or comments? No? All right. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. That's such a cute gift. I love it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. We'll now move on to our audit synopsis and budget introduction.
Thank you. At tonight's meeting, we do a discussion of sort of the budget introduction for 23-24, and then we recap where we were for 21-22 based on the audited school results. So, I apologize. The first item is a review of total revenue, which increased to $116 million for the year 21-22, and actual expenses of $115 million. Included within the $115 million is $3.9 million, which was transferred to capital projects, which is always very, very positive that we're able to accomplish. So the net overall increase to the general fund was $1.5 million, which is very close to what it was 2 years ago at $1.7 million. On a topside basis with revenue, the revenue increased from local sources by $4.3 million, primarily from the tax increase, earned income tax, and also some transfer tax. State revenue increased by 0.6, primarily from PSERS, and federal, which is smaller, obviously, is also it's a small decrease of 0.3, primarily based on COVID-19 funding and the timing of that. From the standpoint of, what percentage, local revenue is $92 million and about 80% of our overall budget. State revenue is $21 million and 18% of our budget, and federal is 2.6 and 2% of our budget. From an expenditure standpoint, we'll see a pie in it. I think it's the next slide, giving sort of an indication that salaries and benefits are such a significant part of our budget. The overall increase was $1.1 million based on contract increases and the retro pay. Benefits decreased by $3.4 million. Capital was 0.8, and property and equipment was 0.5. So the pie just shows the blue and being salaries and the reddish being benefits, and how that is such a very, very significant part of our overall budget, being about 80% of our total budgeted expenses on a year-to-year basis. From the standpoint of challenges and opportunities, Stony Creek, I guess just one step even higher than that. Overall, our enrollment has increased significantly in the past 4 years compared to where we've been for the past however many years. And because of that, we have needed to complete several facility projects, and we have several other facility projects going on. So the biggest that is almost complete is Stony Creek. It is primarily being occupied and is working, but we are still working through a final punch list items from the architect and a little bit of work on the outside. Earlier tonight, we had an Act 34 hearing on Bluebell, and in the spring, we'll be opening bids, and we are hopeful that if the bids are positive, we'll be able to move forward with that project starting this summer. The middle school renovation is up for approval tonight, and that would allow us to convert the old pool at the middle school into 6 classrooms. And just sort of as an overall discussion, the elementary building capacity is very, very high throughout all of our buildings. From the special education standpoint, I think what we need to do from the challenge and opportunity standpoint is just to continue to know that we have enrollment increases throughout the district, and we also have enrollment increases in special education. The Stony Creek project was completed with specific rooms to facilitate the best education we can provide for some of the autistic children at the district, and already they're growing beyond the facility that we created. So again, we have to continue to recognize the fact that special education is also increasing at a pretty high proportion. From the standpoint of assessed valuation, we keep an eye on this just from the standpoint that we do certain things internally to try to keep the assessed valuation as high as we can possibly have it. And in addition, all of the new construction that happens throughout the district also increases the assessed valuation. And it doesn't seem like a lot, and graphically it really isn't, but that is almost a 1% increase from 21 to 22, which is very, very positive because essentially that is it's a 0.9% increase in revenue without having to increase taxes. So that's a very, very positive overall trend. The yellow is Whippane, blue is Lower Gwinnett, and the green is Ambler, and together they become the black line at the top. PSERS has been a story, and we continue to leave it as a slide just because the magnitude of the dollars. The last line on the right-hand side is $19.8 million, which is what we would anticipate needing from a budgetary standpoint. But it is a very, very significant item that almost $20 million of our budget is geared towards PSERS, which is the retirement system. This is a slide of where we have been historically for PSERS, and obviously we were happier and better off at the 2009 and 2010 timeframe, where it's about 5% versus where we are now, which is 35%. And what the 35% means is for every dollar of salaries, we have 35 cents worth of PSERS, which we get 15% back. But from the expense side, it's 35%. Again, from the standpoint of where we are in comparison to our neighbors, we are very, very fortunate. We are the second lowest in Montgomery County on a comparative tax millage rate basis. So we are at 22.45, 21.46, if I read that correctly, is Upper Marion. And then the various other districts that are to the left of us all have higher millage rates. And again, we are pretty similar to Upper Marion, and then the other ones that are next to us, I think it would be several years, even if we had tax increases and they had no tax increases before we would get to even District 19. So there's a fair amount of space between us and District 19. So the net overall is that we're very, very happy that our millage rate is as low as it is and among the lowest in the county. Timeline for the budget. The Act 1 index is 4.1%. Tonight at the meeting, we're going to have a discussion and a motion to hopefully stay within the Act 1 index, and we'll pass a resolution to do so. That we would then have various meetings and budgetary meetings with a community and board input, and culminating in a May and June adoption of the 23-24 budget. Next steps are, just as we talked about, staying within the index, having the individual pieces of the budget presented, various meetings about enrollment capacity and staffing, because as we discussed, there have been significant increases, making assumptions about things as we progress through. We'll have better information on medical, better information on PSERS perhaps. And then at the end of the time frame, we'll have a consolidated group budget to present to the board, and then the board will adopt it at that point in time. Are there any questions? Thank you, Mr. Badger.
Thanks, Wade. One quick question on the revenue opportunity side. The parcel of land that was adjacent or is adjacent to Gwinnett Mercy College that was owned by Merck, sold to the college. We lost it from the tax rolls, and then was sold to Beacon Capital Partners. Is that projected to have an effect on our budget coming this year or next year?
Yeah, so I think the answer is yes, and partially, hopefully more. My understanding, if I get it correctly, was that it is being placed back on the rolls it's actually probably back on the rolls in a January timeframe, but the tax bills for us won't really be affected until the June, July timeframe for next year's budget. And I think it's about $10 million, which would obviously be a good guy. I do believe that is a property that we're going to be looking at whether or not it should be increased beyond the level that it is. Going forward, my understanding is that it's going to be developed into potentially something that would put even more value on that property and increase in the future as well, hopefully without any additional children.
My understanding is it's going to be a life science project, so hopefully there will be no children involved. Thank you.
No other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, thank you so
Wait,
much.
can I ask one thing really
Oh, go
quickly?
ahead.
Wade, seeing the amount of like the PSERS share that we're paying now compared to in the early 2010s, how does that affect how we have to raise taxes?
Sure. So thank you again. Very good question. What it required as we were ramping up over that time frame is a fairly significant portion of whatever we raised in additional tax revenue directly had to be used to pay for those additional expenses. So as we were going through that, a very, very high percentage of whatever we would raise went directly to PSRS and we couldn't accomplish anything positive or more. The total percentage is very, very high now, but the percentage increase isn't increasing at nearly the higher rate. So while the total dollars are very large, it's not sucking up a bigger proportion of what we can potentially add in the future.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Babe. All right, we'll now move on to our first public comment period. We allow a maximum of 5 speakers on any particular topic. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And please note it's not the board's practice to engage in dialogue with speakers. When appropriate, we will follow up with responses on our district website. And this first public comment period is for agenda items only. I don't see anyone in person. Katie, is there anyone online?
There are no hands raised online.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on. With the board president's report, I have no informational items this evening, but under action items, I do have one motion that I'll be seeking, which is to approve Zephy as our North Monco Technical Career Center Joint Operation Committee member for a 3-year term effective December 2022 through December 2025. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
All right, the motion's been made in second. Are there any comments? Yes, thank you, Zephy. All right, seeing no
Thank you.
comments. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Well, congratulations, Zephy. Motion
Thank you.
passed. We'll then move on to our superintendent report.
Thank you. No informational items tonight, and the one action item is the set of changes to the district's health and safety plan that we discussed at the work session last Monday and per document 7-1. So if I could please, a motion to approve agenda item 7B1.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there comments or questions concerning this item?
I have a quick comment. I just wanted to say that I really want the board to approve this because I think it's important for the general public to know that we are strongly recommending the CDC guidelines. I don't think that language should have ever been removed. I also want to just speak quickly to the point that I know some people think that we need to not spend time on this or get over COVID. And I think it's really important to understand that this is part of our job. We are required to review the health and safety plan. And this is not about one individual person. This is about the health of our greater community. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. And Jim, I did have a question. So I know some board members, or I sense some board members from the discussion we previously had on this may support certain aspects of this, but not other aspects. We're voting as a whole on this. We can't break it out and vote on certain sections. We have to vote on it as a whole. Is that correct?
That's the way it's designed on the agenda now. The board is certainly welcome to craft this any way they want, but the design was these set of changes for which is actually really 3 changes. And this whole set would be added to the existing health and safety plan.
Okay. All right. Well, can we have, are there any other questions or comments? Sorry, before we vote. Go ahead, Joe.
I just have one comment. I mean, based on my read of the changes, the most visible, I think, and tangible change to the proposed language would be notifications going back to parents and families if there's a reported case of COVID-19 in their child's school. I mean, that's I think the most substantive change that's included in the proposed language. And although I have concerns about the completeness of the reporting of COVID-19 to the school district, so that we can give a notification every time it's needed. In spite of that, I think there will be some people that will, I think, do the right thing and report if their kids have COVID-19. And in that scenario, I think it does make sense for us to send notification home. I guess in my view, it doesn't really hurt, right? So I think on balance, I'm supportive of the proposed changes, and I plan to be voting for it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Go ahead, Rosetta. Thank you, Rosetta. Any other comments? Can we do a roll call vote? Thank you.
Mr. Antonio,
Yes.
Mr. Badger,
Yes.
Mr. Bleefeld,
Yes.
Ms. Kiavachi,
Yes.
Mr. Frank,
Yes.
Mrs. Hayman,
Yes.
Ms. Karianakis,
Yes.
Dr. Morris.
Yeah.
Mrs. Ginsburg,
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, motion passes.
Thank you, Katie. All right, we'll move on now to the Assistant Superintendent report. Oh, and thank you, Jim, for your report. Dr. Dwan?
Thank you. Good evening. I have no informational items and no action items this evening.
Thank you. I will now move on to our Board Solicitor report. Jeff?
No report. Other than as stated.
Thank you so much, Jeff. All right, we'll move on now to our Board Secretary report. Wade?
Thank you. There's no changes to what we discussed last Monday, so I am requesting approval of action items 10B1 through 10B4.
So moved.
The motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Thank
Thank you. I will now move on to our Board Treasurer report. Wade?
Thank you. There's been no changes to the action item, so we are requesting approval of action item 11B1.
So moved.
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, we'll now move on to our Human Resources report. Danielle?
As usual, I do have changes. So changes from last week's work session can be found in bold on the agenda. These specifically include item 1, appointments, change of status, and an extracurricular resignation. Item 6 is changed in language only to further define the scope of the compensation study that we reviewed at the work session. There are no changes to the cost of the proposal. This evening, I'm seeking approval for action items 12B1 through 7.
So moved.
The motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on now to our committee report. So we'll start with our Communications Committee. Zeffie?
So just a couple of informational items. One is still on the topic of later school start and end times. There will be our 3rd community update email that will be going out tomorrow with survey results. So that will be very interesting and a good read, I'm sure. December 15th is our next community conversation, which is a Zoom that people can attend to come forward with their Q&As. I hope all can attend. It's actually very well run, and they do answer all your questions. I have no other items. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Is that December 15th conversation on online?
Yeah, it's Zoom, so you can kind of just jump on the Zoom for that. And like you can chat or raise your hand. They've made it very easy to participate.
Will that be recorded if you can't attend live? Is that something that you could access later? Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you for that report, Zeffie. We'll move on now to our Curriculum and Technology Committee. Ronnie?
Yes, there's one informational item. The Wissahickon High School Program of Studies, which is document 4-1A. And then the action items, there are many. Dr. Dawn?
Yes, good evening. Our informational item is noted in document 14-1A, as Ronnie mentioned. This is the overview of the highlights of the changes to our high school's program of studies. So you'll see in that document those highlighted changes. that we review with the board each December. In January, our students begin to select their courses for the next school year, and that program of studies document will guide their process. The full document will be available on the district after this evening's meeting. Just a couple notes about those changes. There's going to be a freshman seminar course starting next school year. That course is added, which will be a quarter of a credit for high school students. It will focus on executive functioning skills and leadership skills, college and career readiness, and financial literacy. It's something that the high school team has been working to develop throughout this school year in preparation for adding that course for next school year. A couple of changes, such as the American Political Science course is renamed American Government in grade 12. There's a new AP World History course, and Social Lab is renamed to be Senior Internship for grade 12. Yes.
Steve, I would like to just, with regard to the financial literacy piece of this, we need to publicly call out a former board member, Barbara Ullery, who this was her baby for many, many years. And Barbara, if you're out there or if you get wind of this, thank you for pushing. We're finally complied with a very good idea.
And so as a result, the class of 2027 and beyond, their graduation credit requirement will be an additional 0.25 credits because of that freshman seminar course. So effective with the class of 2027, the graduation credit requirement will then be 27.05 credits for those classes prior to then, which includes the class of 2024, 2025, and 2026. They'll continue to be required to earn 26.80 credits, which is what we have in place now. And then there's a brief review of the North Modco Technical Career Center program changes. Two new course offerings include the property maintenance and renovation as part of the construction trades cluster. We heard a little bit about that last week, and the social media marketing course as a part of the visual communications cluster. And Mr. Frank also reviewed those courses that are no longer going to be offered, which includes drafting and design, allied health technology, and horticulture. So that concludes that informational item. Unless there are any questions, we'll move on to the action items.
Just a question about the freshman seminar. It's one marking period. So do they get to take 4 of these? Do they take 4 of those seminars per year? I mean, in freshman year?
They take one seminar during their freshman year. It's a quarter credit, and it is offered throughout that year to different groups of freshman students. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Well, so I guess what I'm wondering is if they're taking the freshman seminar for one marking period and then it ends, for the remainder of the year, what are they filling that marking period with?
Yes, this has been a part of that course development process. And while I'm not able to answer your question right now, I will be certain to get the answer to you. And I can assure you that the high school team has prepared for that scenario. They've been working through this process to ensure that there is that balance, of course, throughout the school year.
And the options that they do have, though, look fantastic. And I did want to make a comment. I noticed that AP World History, (modern) is for history from 1200 to today. So I guess 1200 counts as modern history. I guess in geologic time, maybe.
Thank you.
No more comments.
A question about the allied health technology program at North Modco. Was this a partnership like where the students actually worked in a hospital setting? I've heard about this, but I don't know offhand. Is that what it was, Jim? So we won't be offering that? They won't be offering that anymore?
Yeah, it was real world experiences in hospitals, and it's correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Frank, but it's getting increasingly difficult to get those placements for the students. It wasn't working so much as just sort of interning, being in a hospital setting.
So they won't be offering that, like that particular partnership anymore. Is that the conclusion of the report, or you have more?
That concludes our informational item. As for our action items, there have been no changes since last Monday's board meeting. And so this evening we'll be seeking a motion to approve action items 14B1 through 14B4.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, thank you for that report, Dr. Dewan. Facilities and Transportation Committee report, Joe.
Thank you. There are no informational items this evening, and we have 6 action items, which remain unchanged from last week when we reviewed and discussed them. Just as a reminder, 15B3 and 15B4 are related to the middle school construction project, taking the old swimming pool space and converting them into additional classrooms for the middle school. So with that, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve action items 15B1 through 15B6.
So moved.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions?
I have a question about the middle school renovation. I see in the second item in 4, the HVAC testing balancing. Are we going to need a new HVAC system in that pool area, Wade?
Yes.
And will it be compatible with MERV 13 filters?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on now to our Finance Committee report. David?
Thanks, Amy. There are no new informational items for tonight. The action items were presented last week. It looks like item number 2, approval of the financial and compliance report year ending June 30th has changed. Wade, is that just changing from draft status to non-draft?
Yes, there
The
were certain items that were cleaned up, and the final audit report will reflect all of those changes, and the 2057 was also included as part of that package.
Very good. Let's see. I think I'm gonna, let's see. Item 1 is approval of the financial reports. Item 2 is approval of the audit report. Item 3, approval of budget transfers. And item 4, approval of commitment of fund balance for the 21-22 fiscal year. Let's consider those 4 first. Action items 16B 1 through 4. We have a motion for those.
So moved.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions? All right, seeing none.
I'm sorry, just
Oh,
one
go ahead,
comment.
Jeff.
Congratulations to Wade, Tim, and the rest of the business office and team for yet another clean audit and overall strong financial position for the district. Thank you.
Well said. We could also would like to extend a thank you to the volunteers from the public, Rick Shoren and Greg Wild, who serve on the audit committee. They've been at it for a long time. They both lended their time and expertise in this area to help us understand pretty complicated numbers. So, thank you to those.
Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, passes. Thank you.
Item number 5 is the sort of kicks off the budget season for next fiscal year. Wade, do we need to add anything other than what was said today? Well, I'll go ahead and ask for a motion to approve item number 5. Number 6, which is approval of the sports supply bid. Number 7, approval of Indian Valley Appraisal Company for appraiser fees. And number 8, approval of list of payments issued for the month ending October 31st. If we could have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded. Are there any comments or questions?
One comment about action item 16B5. This is the one, in essence, which will bind us as a board to not exceeding the Act 1 index as we consider next year's budget. And I would like to, I guess, publicly state for the record, a goal for us as a board to shoot well below the Act 1 index maximum as we look to prepare the budget for next year. Yeah, I mean, 4.1 is a pretty big number. And I would like to sort of challenge us and administration to, as we look at the budget for next year, shoot for an increase, if they're assuming there is going to be one, something well below 4.1%.
Thank you, Joe. Any other comments?
Just to reiterate, this was a comment you made last week, but just for the public, if they were to listen, this is, again, caps us at 4.1, but we can go below. So we're not approving today to be at 4.1, but that is the cap. So I just want that to be crystal clear for our community.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. All right, any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. We'll now move on to our policy committee report. Marshall?
Thank you, Amy. There are no informational items this evening. We do have some action items, though, B1 through 8. We are looking for an approval of the first reading of the board policies that were reviewed at our last meeting. There are no changes, so at this point, I would ask for a motion to approve the first reading.
So move.
Second.
Motion's been made, it's been seconded. Are there any comments or questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. We'll now move on to our Racial Equity Oversight Committee report. Paul?
Thanks, Amy. Just an informational item this evening. It's a reminder that on December 19th, we will have our community listening session. It's going to be at 7 p.m. at the Ambler Borough Hall. So all are welcome to attend.
Thank you. And just as a reminder also, that's not virtual, it's just in person, right?
Correct, just in person.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll now move on to extracurricular. Marshall?
Thank you. The extracurricular committee did have a meeting last week on the 7th. And just to recap, we went over the prior meetings approvals, which were for a poetry and girls flag football club, as well as the addition of Wissahickon Middle School musical positions, as well as some name changes. There was an open item regarding the addition of a potential boys volleyball team at the high school. We've discussed this now at 2 meetings. There is, I would say, substantial support for the possibility of adding the team, but we are going through the process of seeking the proper approvals and making sure that it's something we are capable of doing. So that's where we are right now. As I said, the feedback is positive. There is support for it, but we have to make sure that we can do so. At this past meeting, we also approved several clubs. One is the Unified Theater Club, which will have a show coming up, and there'll be more information about that. There was the addition of a real estate club, and finally, a tic-tac-toe club. For those wondering, it's not full contact tic-tac-toe. It is just on paper. So that was the third that was approved. In addition, there was an approval for a middle school club proposal for a dialogue and current issues club, which is pending some definitional support and finalization as well. So that's where we are on clubs, teams, and extracurricular activities.
Thank you, Marshall. I did have a question. So I've heard concern about this in the past about possibly the unequal funding of clubs, like how much money clubs receive or how much they need to fundraise. Is there any way, I don't know if this is something that would come up at one of your meetings, we talk about extracurricular, but if you're able to share with us how clubs are funded.
Well, whether it's by fundraising or how they come about their funding.
Exactly.
Oftentimes it's by either fundraising outside of the school district. Sometimes if clubs have dissolved, money can be moved over. So there are different ways that it can be done. Each one is different and the requirements are different and the capacity is different. So it depends on the club and then what's available depending on what clubs are still around or not. So, and Wade may have some additional information on that as well.
I think we've actually talked about that. And that's something that we can get sort of a write-up and then provide all the board members.
That'd be great, thank you.
But one thing to add, Wade, correct me if I'm wrong, but for every club we do approve, there has to be like an adult essentially who's kind of like the club advisor. And for whoever the club advisor is, there's a form in our union contract that based on the characteristics of the club club advisor then gets a certain stipend. So from a budget perspective, the district is committed to paying the stipend for the adult who's supervising the club for each of these. Some of those costs that you guys were referencing is like above and beyond for like trips to competitions or things like that. And I think that's when then the additional like fundraising stuff comes into play. But at a minimum, we as a district are paying for the staff member or adult who's overseeing the club.
But not everyone, correct? Not everyone has it.
I think what we found out at the last meeting where there were 2 that were actually funded by an outside entity. But other than that, I think they were related to the Special Olympics, if I remember correctly. So that there were kids participating, but the actual funding of the leadership is provided by the Special Olympics. I think everybody else we do exactly as Mr. Antonio noted. And I thought Mrs. Ginsburg's question related more to maybe like, if they needed supplies or the tic-tac-toe board or whatever it is, where does that money come from? And we'll have to get you right up for that.
Yeah, I'm more familiar. So my kids are elementary age. So we actually, like as parents, we pay, like if my child wants to be in the chess club, we have to pay X amount to have them be a member of the club. There's no fundraising. But the high school, it's not done that way. There's fundraising, is that correct? Rather than a fee you pay?
Yeah, so on the fundraising front, like one of the large ones that is approved by the board, FBLA consistently has some several of their people go to state or even national events, and that's all fundraised. And I'm sure that's very much disproportionate than some club that doesn't. Maybe it's the poetry club or whatever, where they're just in a room reading poetry, and that's the extent of the activity. But again, we'll try to get a breakdown of exactly how many clubs do substantial fundraising versus how many don't. And in addition to that, whether there's high school support of some funding mechanism for anybody who comes and says, here's what I need. So.
Great, thank you.
And if I could dovetail on that, Wade, I also would like to understand like how sports fits into that specifically, like how do we fund sports versus performing arts programs like the marching band, the Camerata, et cetera, because it's not very clear to me how we distinguish and how we fund the different programs that we have at the high school.
Absolutely, we can do that.
Thank you.
And I just had a question about the volleyball. Marshall, you're talking about like a PIAA team they're trying to add. So my question would then be, I don't know like what kind of Title IX things we have to follow. Do we have requirements to follow there where, okay, we're adding a boys sport. Do we need to add a girls sport? Or I don't know. How does that work?
Yes, there are requirements. Part of the process that we're going through now to determine the feasibility of the people.
Okay, thanks, Marshall.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, Marshall, I got to ask. The tic-tac-toe club.
I'm not the rep of the club.
I'm just,
I'm on the extracurricular committee, but I will help as a.
You said tic-tac-toe? Or was it?
That's what I believe. You could read back the record. Was it? But I believe I said tic-tac-toe. Yeah.
Yes, the answer is yes, it's tic-tac-toe.
It's not TikTok? It's tic-tac-toe?
Tic-tac-toe.
Tic-tac-toe,
Okay.
3 in a row.
I am 100%.
I'm just trying to think like,
sure.
it's a pretty straightforward game, right? I mean,
I want to apologize if I was unclear earlier. A tic-tac-toe club was approved. This is the game where you have squares and you put X's and O's and you get 3 either up, down, or diagonally. That was the club that was approved. I don't know if it will be televised, so if any additional questions or comments, you may want to go to a live in-person event.
So
we're not making light of the club. I mean, it's now
Yeah,
approved,
right.
so if they may need a chaperone, they may need a funding.
And now well, it's 2 things. I was seriously wondering if it was really a TikTok club, but it is a tic-tac-toe club.
Tic-tac-toe.
And as part of the approval process for any of these extracurricular clubs, usually they have to show that there's like some demand, right? Student demand. So there's usually a list, I think, of kind of like a petition of students who are interested and would join if the club existed. So for the Tic-Tac-Toe Club, I presume they were able to get a bunch of people interested in that?
You are correct.
Wow, okay.
I don't know if you're mocking the Tic-Tac-Toe Club or not.
I'm
but
truly curious.
So this group is listed as an IE, which means that at first they're going to, they believe, be able to fit it within their schedule with kids who are interested in this, using their IE to play tic-tac-toe.
Yeah.
So it is not an after school, it is a during the school day thing, and it's really just a choice of what they're going to spend. their
Okay,
time
so it's
doing.
during the school day. Okay, well, that's a little bit different.
And it's not a varsity sport.
Yeah,
It
right,
is
right.
it's an
Yeah.
IE, and they
Yeah.
were
You don't need a lot of equipment.
right, they were funding will be determined, and the interest was in excess of 20 students
Okay.
who signed up for it. So it is
Got it.
approved.
Got it. Great.
The most questions I've ever had on this topic. Anybody have any other questions or comments?
I think you need
All
to
right,
look into
no
this
other
too.
questions? No comments? Okay, thank you, Marshall, for that report.
You're welcome.
All right.
I only wish that the policy committee policy would be as lively as the extracurricular.
Oh, keep wishing. All right, MCIU Board of Directors and Legislative Committee, we haven't had a meeting since last week, so I don't have a new report. North Mako Technical Career Center. Zephy, I imagine you did not attend, so Ronnie?
Okay, they had their National Honor Society induction and 5 students from Wissahickon were inducted. And from what I understand, they will be coming to a board meeting for us to meet them. Okay? January.
Oh, yay. Oh, wonderful. That's great.
What was that?
Yes, you need to put it.
I like the one in my face better. There are 5 students from Wissahickon who were inducted into the Honor Society, and they will be coming here in January.
Any comments or questions? All right, thanks so much, Ronnie. And next we'll have our PSBA liaison, Dean.
Nothing now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're now at our second public comment period, which can be on any school-related topic. As a reminder, we allow a maximum of 5 speakers on any particular topic. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And please remember that's not the board's practice to engage in dialogue with speakers, but when appropriate, we will follow up with a response on the website. There is no one in person. Katie, anyone online?
There are no raised hands on Zoom.
Okay, well then we'll move on to board comments. Any board comments this evening? None? All right, then. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a follow-up to Mr. Antonio's question. During the semester in which freshmen will take the new freshman seminar course, during the other marking period, they'll have study hall. And then during the other semester, they take a half-credit elective. So that is the response to your question in terms of what happens during the other time.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that update. All right, any other board comments? All right, seeing none, I can have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second,
All
third.
right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, meeting is adjourned.